Hello! Today we're going to be doing a video from the Infographics Show channel, so be sure to go and check their stuff out. I haven't watched this particular video, but I have watched a lot of stuff from their show. That's the Infographics Show. The name of this video is Jail versus Prison. What's actually the difference? So let's go ahead and check it out.
You did the crime, and now you're gonna do the time. You're shipping up to the big house, to the clink, to Lockup City. But you could actually end up in two completely separate places, both with different sets of rules. Today we're asking jail versus prison. What's the difference?
I've actually watched a lot of like prison type shows, the documentary style where they show what's happening in prison. So I already know that there's quite a few differences between prison and jail as far as like the amenities and how you're treated and all that good stuff. So let's see if this guy gives me information that I don't have.
First, we'll start with jail, since if you were forced to choose, this is definitely the one you want to get sent to.
Which is really funny because that's not what I hear from like convicted criminals. Jail, which I'm sure they're going to tell you here in a bit, is where you go to while you're waiting to go to trial, or if you've been sentenced to less than a year. Normally, if you're convicted and sentenced to less than a year, they'll go ahead and put you in jail. Anything over a year, they normally put you in prison. And from all the convicted criminals that I've ever talked to, prison is way more comfortable for them than jail was, just because there's more amenities. You know where you're at. There's less. Just here, I guess you know what. I'll let them explain.
Typically, this is what's known as the clink, with prison being known as the big house. Jails are normally much smaller facilities that hold a smaller number of inmates than prisons, which can have populations of several thousand. They're typically run by local governments, think city versus the state, and supervised by a county sheriff's department. Their population is mostly made up of people who have been recently arrested for minor offenses or a misdemeanor, and their sentences are far shorter than in prison, typically less than a year. Yet jail
They should point out that while people are waiting for trial, they are there. So if you're waiting for trial on a murder charge, you're in jail with other people that might be waiting a murder charge as well. So when they say minor offenses or a misdemeanor, they're talking about the people that have already been convicted. But the people waiting to be convicted or proven innocent are also in there with you.
Jails are themselves different from the temporary lockups, which are typically located inside police departments and hold individuals who can't post bail, those arrested for public drunkenness, or individuals waiting to be processed into a jail. Jails can also serve to hold prisoners awaiting trial or to hold a prisoner during a very long and extended trial. While they typically only hold individuals guilty of misdemeanors, if the sentences for several misdemeanors are not served concurrently, then an individual could be held for far longer than the typical period of less than a year. However, jails often offer work release programs, boot camps, educational programs, substance abuse support groups, and vocational training programs.
Which are all good. I'm a big fan of trying to train people to not commit any more crimes when they happen to leave the facility they're in. Because otherwise, why let them out in the first place? If they don't have any skills or you didn't teach them anything, what's going to stop them from doing the same thing? You got to give them the tools to do better.
Prisons, however, are a vastly different world than jails, and this is where the most hardened criminals are sent to. You'll find no misdemeanors here, and instead, prisons hold men who have been convicted of felonies. If you're wondering the difference between felonies and misdemeanors, misdemeanors include offenses such as petty theft, prostitution, simple assault, trespassing, vandalism, and reckless driving. Felonies, on the other hand, include crimes such as assault with a deadly weapon, grand theft, rape, and murder. If you had to pick which of the two populations to spend a year or more with, we're pretty sure you'd want to go with the misdemeanor crowd.
Well, once again, that's kind of not how it works. The problem being in jail, you're mixed in with all types of different people waiting for their trial. So you're mixed in with murderers, you're mixed in with people that just stole something, you're mixed with people that beat somebody up. In prison, yes, they're all people that have committed a felony, but there's still different levels to it. Like they have minimum security, medium, high security, depending on what you did and what type of person you've proven yourself to be. That being the case, like if you're in there for fraud, let's say you stole a whole bunch of money from your work, you're going to prison. However, you're not going to be held with other people that have that type, you will be held with people with that type of convictions mostly. They're not going to mix you in with like the murderers. for the most part. That's why they have different levels of security for prisons. So in a lot of cases, it's safer for you in prison because you're in there with people that have committed the same type of crimes that you've committed. And if you're a nonviolent criminal, then you're most likely going to be held with other nonviolent criminals. In jail, there's none of that. You're just in there with everybody else. So instead of being in there with like all nonviolent criminals, while you're in jail, your roomie might have killed 4 people. They just haven't proven it yet. So I kind of disagree with this a little bit.
While jails are run by local governments, prisons are run by the state or even the federal government, who has its own prison system apart from that of the state government-run prisons. The difference between the two types of prisons is pretty obvious. State prisons hold individuals who break state laws, and federal prisons hold individuals guilty of breaking federal laws. The difference between the two offenses can be a bit murky though, and federal prisoners can range from individuals who rob banks because banks are insured by the federal government to people accused of political crimes, and many white-collar criminals. For these reasons, state prisons are often much more dangerous than federal prisons, as they hold many more violent offenders. If you plan on breaking the law, then make sure it's a federal law and not a state law for a much safer prison experience.
But also a much
Federal and
longer
state
prison
prisons range from
experience.
minimum security to maximum security though, and the degree of the offense determines where you'll end up. Many white-collar crimes, such as tax evasion, can net you a stay in a federal minimum security prison. Here, you'll enjoy many amenities, including team sports and a dining facility, with few guards and typically just a single fence. Minimum security prisons tend to resemble adult camps more than actual prisons, and some even have internet access for their prisoners.
See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. For some people, prison's way better than jail.
Visits with family are common, and violence is exceptionally rare. You'll also be able to enjoy a dorm instead of a cell, and overall your stay will resemble something more like a college dorm than an actual prison. Offenders here typically have non-violent convictions and clean prior criminal records, though some can be prisoners who have been transferred from higher security prisons thanks to exemplary behavior. Medium security prisons are what you probably think of when you think of prison, and though the inmates do enjoy some degree of independence, their movements are all very tightly controlled. You can forget things such as team sports or internet access, though some prisons may offer use of library computers as incentives to well-behaved individuals. Medium security prisons also don't have cells, and instead have...
See, that's the one thing that would make me uncomfortable. Honestly, if I'm in prison, I kind of want a cell. I want a solo cell if I can handle it. Get it done, which normally doesn't happen. You normally have to commit offenses in the prison and have them punish you by putting you in solitary confinement. I, on the other hand, would probably enjoy solitary confinement.
Have spanning dormitories that house dozens of inmates together. Orange is the New Black is a good example of a medium security prison facility. Maximum security prison, or supermaxes, is where the worst of the worst go. Yet this is where the least of all prisoners in the U.S. serve their time. These places are inhabited by inmates with very violent offenses or those who have caused trouble in lower security prisons, earning them a trip to a much more restrictive life. Inmates who have tried to escape or successfully escaped and then been caught are also automatically sent to a maximum security prison so their movements can be very close.
Yeah, see, that's the type of prison you obviously don't want to be in. Jail would be way better than that. But all these other type of prisons, like the minimum and lower security prisons, would obviously be a better time to spend your incarcerated time than in a jail.
Closely monitored. Unsurprisingly, an inmate's daily life is extremely restricted in a supermax, and head counts are common. Prisoners typically share a small cell with another prisoner and may get some freedom to move about the cells during the daytime, but must always be ready for head counts by lights out. Prisoners also enjoy cafeteria meals and time spent on recreation out in the yard, where they can...
Now, this is the thing I've been told over and over again by every single prison and jail documentary I've ever seen, every TV show, every movie, every person I've ever talked to. Prison food sucks. Jail food sucks too. It's probably about the same, I would imagine, but it sucks. Most of the people I've talked to said they lived off the commissary, the stuff that they could buy from the store to eat as opposed to what the prison gave them.
And do things like play basketball or lift weights, while gang activity permeates the entire prison system and even jails. It's a
fantastic tattoos.
Prison where it's at its peak. And along with the restrictions imposed by the prison system, inmates live under a code of conduct further restricted by the gangs they join. Not joining a gang is possible, but typically hazardous to your health. Inside a maximum security prison, you can also find solitary lockup, which is
Yeah.
where the worst of the worst end up doing much of their time.
Kinda where I wanna be.
Offenders who trespass while serving time in prison will get sent as a punishment. And though most stays last only a few weeks, they can end up serving as much as years in solitary. Offenses such as assaulting a guard will not only get you more prison time, but earn you several months or more in solitary, where you'll spend your entire day cramped up in a tiny cell with 1 hour of outside
Look how sad he looks. I'm so sad. I'm in solitary confinement.
recreation a day. During that hour, you'll be allowed to sit in a small fenced-in outdoor area that's typically a few paces long by a few paces wide, though often you may not be allowed outside as short-staffed prisons simply can't spare the manpower to get you your hour of rec. Other times, guards may simply deny you your hour as a punishment measure. Between the two, you definitely want to serve your time in jail if you can, or at least in a minimum security
there you
prison where you'll enjoy many of the perks of what basically amounts to an adult camp. End up in a medium or maximum security prison though, and it's not only are you going to be there a long time, but your stay is going to be much more difficult and much more uncomfortable. Which would you rather serve your time in? Let us know in
Okay,
the comments.
now-
And as always, if you enjoyed the
One thing I'll say, he's mostly right about most of that. I still contend that a medium security prison would be a better place to spend your time than in jail. Jail's no good. And when he talked about all the different programs and stuff that they have for people in jail, most of that stuff's there for anything except for high level security prisons, anyways. So as far as I'm concerned, staying in jail as opposed to a light or a medium security prison, it would be worse. And so that's about the only disagreement I have with that. Okay, that's going to be our show for today. I hope you enjoyed that one. That was a different type of video than we normally watch, but I'm still experimenting on which type of stuff seems to work best for me. If you have any suggestions for videos you want me to watch, go ahead and leave a comment below, or you can shoot me an email, and that'll be down there in the video description as well. Until next time, you guys yourself happy. I always screw up the end. Until next time, you guys have yourself a fantastic day. If you could like and subscribe and maybe comment, I'd really appreciate it.